Well, it's snowing here in Minnesota, so I turned on my furnace in my studio, so I'm going to turn that off so you don't get that sound when we're talking.
Cool. I haven't heard anything yet if you need it on. But...
Hey, PJ.
Hey, guys.
Just walking through the table.
You
like
say it was snowing?
It is. It's crazy. I'm not ready for it.
Outside for a bit. I wonder if it's snowing here. Yikes.
Not snowing here. It's been like back up in 75-degree weather.
Yeah.
Went down to 40 and I was like, this is great.
Where do you live?
North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
It's just, you can have a 30-degree temp difference in a day. So went out and bought. Just kidding. We were, trying to, walk more and get out and walk. It was getting chilly. So we just went out on like last Sunday and bought, girlfriend a hat with a puff ball and a scarf. And just like, well, hey, I like that jacket. I guess I'll get a jacket that I don't ever need. And, wore it twice and now it's hot again. Like, darn it.
Well, it's been a big
much
week of change because we have daylight savings, and all of a sudden it goes, from sunlight going down at 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and then also the temperature went down about 20 degrees, and now it's snowing. So it's like, that's part of being in Minnesota, I guess, that you just have to roll with it. But
rip all the Band-Aids off at once.
yes. So it's kind of nice to actually be in this beautiful blue sky place with you guys and not thinking about snow.
Just don't let it get to you, because PJ tells a bunch of guests that it's dark out when we get out of here, but for like an hour and a half or an hour we've been talking in the sun. It's like, oh no, it's bedtime, but it does not feel like bedtime.
Yeah.
So don't
not at all
go outside and freeze to death thinking it's spring and summer.
I see they still have your booth up over there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're getting double coverage this week.
Yes. Well, last week it was kind of the tail end, so I had 2 people to talk to, and so then they re-upped me for this week, and they just kept everything in there.
Oh, awesome.
So it sounds like they might be changing their business model to do this once a month as opposed to every week, because they don't get a lot of people coming in, and I can understand that because I'm pretty tech savvy, but it took me a couple whiles to get spatial or get everything set up so I could download it and do the side quest, because I didn't know what side quest was, and so it's not the most intuitive place just to pop into.
Yeah. I'm hoping once they get on the app lab that'll change, but
seems like one of the things that the metaverse might try to squash. So maybe there's a reason.
Yeah.
Which would be terrible.
So were both of you able to go into Neo Art Space?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm really happy about that. I saw your Twitter post, and the graphics you grabbed are just amazing. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I assumed it was okay because I did a video of the demo back in, was that June or whenever?
Yeah.
So I figured it was okay. I didn't want to you never know when someone's like, oh, you're oversharing it. It's not out yet, or you're undersharing. So, but.
I'm kind of, any publicity is good publicity, and there's nothing that ever makes, seeing a graphic is not half as good as being into VR. So
Yeah.
I was like, damn, they did a nice job. So that was my reaction.
Good.
So there's somebody named Matt Foreman who is a developer who may join us.
Awesome.
I told him about that. I'm just a designer. He's the Unity guy, and so he creates all the, transportation and that type of thing. So if you see him pop in, that's what his role is. But we could introduce him as well.
Yeah, well, if he pops in, we'll definitely introduce him. Once in a while, we'll have people come in and join the audience. If they do, we'll have them ask questions and stuff. But
yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, if we want to wait for him, that's cool. Unless you're ready, whenever.
Well, let me turn
we're
off my
ready.
furnace so it's not blowing here because it was kind of loud for me. I'm glad that you're not hearing it, but I'll be right back.
All right. I didn't do a dual stream. There is no good way that I can find to quiet one of them yet, so I just did the single.
Unless I think you're gonna have to ask him to put a mute button in. I was wondering if he was carrying his head up there and putting it like on a hook, like a coat hook. Exactly what it seemed like.
And I'm back.
We always like to watch someone you can kind of tell like they take their own head off and set it down or hang it up.
It was like a play-by-play. I was like, I think he's putting it on a coat hook, and then it just your head went like.
Well, I recently watched Avatar again, and like going into VR is kind of like that, or you're in one body, and all of a sudden you're like in a different body. But when the real world calls, all of a sudden that body in VR just pops down to the ground, and yeah, your head rolls wherever it is, and so it is very interesting. Well, this is an interesting format compared to last time. I think we were just voices over your
Discord,
site,
yeah.
so it's kind of fun to see both of you and be here with you virtually.
Yeah, it's more engaging. Like the audio only is great, but this you can see hand movements and you can tell I'm looking at you, and like if you bring stuff, you can do show and tell.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well,
I see
I
someone.
really like what you did with the space with adding all the artwork.
Yeah, we're kind of in the process of redesigning the booth to help maximize that stuff. But hey, Matt.
Hey guys.
Hey, Matt.
Rem 5 alumni. What's up?
Yeah. Well, Philip, do you want me to join you up there for any tech questions, or do you got this?
Yeah. Feel free to hop in.
All right.
There's only
If
one
you guys
chair,
want-
but
If you guys want the two chairs, Wookie and I can. He can
this
no, that's
works.
okay. This works.
Just stack up.
Well, I'm standing anyway,
chair
so I.
Works for me.
This looks like one serious cup of Joe here.
Yeah.
It's like Thor's hammer. You can't ever pick it up.
Yeah.
I'm a nice person.
Trying to remember when I visited you guys a couple months back. I'm trying to think if you were there when I came by or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've been kind of hit and miss due to my schedule. I was here when we had a booth that you could kind of walk around in, but
Yeah. Well, if you guys are ready, we're all ready.
Stupid.
Just kind of do the intro and then just start talking. We're pretty laid back, as you
Cool.
know.
Yes, absolutely. We're ready to roll.
Just for the intro, we usually say, it's PJ the Wookiee, and then we go like this and just
yeah,
Shout the
introductions,
ones out,
that'd be great.
yeah.
Yeah.
whatever you want to say.
So we have that little double mini me as a camera there. So if you look at his name, that's kind of where the camera ends up being.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is about the lens.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
We'll look at
kind of
the name. Cool.
the
Yeah.
invisible silent type over there.
Yeah.
Uncle Fester, everybody likes to pet.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Well, hey,
Ready when you
everyone.
are.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to VR Verdict Podcast, episode 98. I am PJ,
I'm Wookiee.
and we're here chatting with.
Philip Noyad.
And Matt Foreman.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
It's going great.
This is
Glad to be here.
awesome. I'm always excited when we have someone return because then we know we weren't totally obnoxious or we were worth talking to. So.
That's a good point.
Oh, I really enjoyed the conversation last time, so it's good
Yeah.
to be back.
Um,
It's really great to be in this space where you've decorated with some of the neo art space pieces, and so I feel right at home.
good.
For sure. Yeah.
For listeners and Wookiee, both of these gentlemen reside up in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, not too far from where I live and where Wookie used to live. So, like I said, I visited
Where
you
are those
guys.
places?
I'm from La Crosse, Wisconsin, actually.
Oh yeah, not far at
And
all.
North Carolina.
Okay.
We were just
He
chatting
used to
about,
live up here.
yeah, they were just chatting about
Got it.
possible snow in there, and I'm like, it's hot as
Oh.
balls.
Not ready for that.
It happened.
Yeah.
At least I waited till November.
True.
But
Yeah.
Philip, you got a new thing coming out, and you're nice enough to give Wookie and I access to your Neo Space. What do you call it exactly?
It's called Neo Art Space. So like new art and space is kind of both being in outer space, but also a space that you experience art in. And it's, like a 30 different light room experience in the middle of outer space. There are spacewalks through star systems and planets. And, basically, I think that if it were in the real world, it'd be about 100,000 square feet horizontally and about 10 stories tall, at least, when you see it just as an experience. So it's not just a piece of art on the wall. It's actually like an artwork that you go inside and experience directly. And so we, with Matt's help, who's a developer on the team,
Yeah.
we're a part of Steam Fest, and we have a little demo out there that people can try. It's has sound and some interactivity, and so that's neoartspace on steam.com.
Yeah, and I should note that it's not only a VR game. You can go play the demo in just 2D desktop mode too, either with your keyboard or plug a game controller in if you have one. So we want to open it up to everyone, make it as accessible as possible. So instead of going just straight VR, we decided to make a desktop mode as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And anyone listening or watching, there'll be links in the show notes for those things. So check it out. But yeah, you say it's for flat screen and VR, and I think I love it when a developer is able to do that just to share it with more people. But
Yeah,
I
we
can't
didn't-
imagine with a good set of headphones, even when you're in the non-VR, because obviously VR is going to be way more impressive.
Yeah, immersive with spatial
Immersive.
audio and all that. But
But
yeah, I'm kind of joining Philip on the tech side. So he hand painted every single thing you see in this experience in Tilt Brush, and I essentially, with the help of another developer, his name's Zach Chapman, I helped pull that into Unity game engine and essentially give it some structure as an actual VR experience that you can go in. It'll have a main menu and stuff like that. And the demo doesn't have a menu or anything like that. You just load right into the experience since that isn't finished yet. But yeah, we polished up the demo pretty good, and a user should have a good experience with that. So
yeah, I got to look at the demo during the Steam Fest, and I was just blown away. And I hit those fences. I'm like, no, I want to keep going. It was good to get past those this week, but yeah, it was just with the audio and the light. I mean, oh my! I was going to ask you, did you create all that stuff, and how did you do it? And you're saying you use Tilt Brush in VR, and you did all of that from there, huh?
Yes. So I come at VR development from an entirely different perspective than most people, because I've been an artist for multiple years, and I've done public art installations at airports, and I do like mobiles using dichroic film that creates these kinetic diamonds that create light that move across the floor, and you can actually walk into the light as it comes across to you. And I've created like a rainbow pyramid. Recently, it was on a TV show with Demi Lovato in Sedona. That's a 12-foot by 12-foot light pyramid that you actually walk into and sit down, and Demi was able to see UFOs. So I mean, it's pretty powerful. So I started from like this public art installation where like the person is not just somebody like looking at art on the wall, but actually in the UX, like the experience is all about them being in the middle of something. And so one of the things I was experimenting with is 3D glasses that use chroma depth color. So you could see a 3D a painting that's 2D, but actually it would be 3D, and it goes through all the different colors from pink to dark blue, and the colors bolt off the canvas. So then I was contacted by somebody to try VR, and I'm like, okay, well, what if I took this 2D painting and made it a painting that you could walk into? So I went and I created like this painting where when you look at it, it looks like the regular 2D painting, but when you go inside of it, it has, you know, all the different colors and shapes of a VR experience. So, and it was all done using Tilt Brush. Then I thought, how could I actually make this even a bigger experience that, you know, would be like each experience would be more interesting than the next, and that there would be kind of a journey through it. And so that's kind of how I ended up in this. There's been a few kind of steps along the way, like figuring out UI, UX, and the ability for people to easily wayfind. Initially, I didn't have great paths, and so people would walk into a wall and get stuck there. Kind of an existential experience. I'm like, you're in a wall, please leave. Or other people like bolt out into the middle of outer space, and some people are fine with that, but some people are like, oh my god, I'm now floating into like an astronaut. And so so there's a considerable amount of time just like building paths and making sure that people could wayfind whichever way they wanted to, and also feel secure enough that they're not just standing in the middle of outer space and having that kind of existential moment of, oh my god, I'm just floating in the middle of outer space. So
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's challenging also on the dev side, because for all the paths and areas that go in, we have to place collision so that people don't fall. And that's why the fences are there in the demo. We actually don't have the collision done anywhere outside of that at the time the demo was released. So
Yeah. And I noticed that in the full experience, and I think no, it probably wasn't in the demo, but I stuck to the path, and then I'm like, I just like to test things. I'm like, I want to go that way. And I was just able to float off into space. And I thought that was really neat. But
Yeah.
to your point, it's crazy how you can choose a path to go down. There's a lot of paths in there. But you can do the whole thing completely the opposite direction. It's like a whole new experience. The way it's just amazing, like seeing everything from that different perspective. It's crazy.
well, it's fascinating. You know, I studied filmmaking, and that's like a narrative storytelling where, you know, you tell people what the beginning is, the middle is, and the end is. And essentially, when I started creating Neo Art Space, there is a bit of a story where you emerge from these caves in the middle of Earth, and you go to space, and then you go to this white room, and so it's kind of this near-death experience where all of a sudden you're like in the light, you know. So, but then in working with Matt and Zach and figuring out like transportation, you know, there are portals that you can actually hop into, and so you can jump from place to place eventually, and you can, you know, follow any path. So it's interesting because it's kind of transformed from being storytelling to story living. And so what PJ does versus what Wookie does versus what Matt does can all be different, and nothing is right or wrong. You just have to be able to allow people to make their own adventure.
Yeah, and it's insane. Like anywhere you look in there in the experience, like there's literally something to see, like completely different. I really liked, kind of had like that, I don't want to say Earth, but it was like a planet was kind of like painted, and it had like holes, and you could kind of see light coming out of it. And then you go inside of it, and you'd see like light from the outside sources. Like it was just, it's crazy. Like everywhere you look, it's just different, and any angle can be something new. It's just
lots of room for curiosity.
yeah.
Well, with that planet, you had this big space in the middle of Neo Art Space, and then one night I thought there should be a planet there, and then I used a splatter brush, which does allow for little spaces. But what's interesting is when you go in the middle of that planet, you see like bits of art, and they look like they're two-dimensional, and so all the little gaps within the planet actually show like amazing artwork that is completely different. But it's also, you know, as a designer, like this piece that you see behind you, initially I had that at the back of the black hole, And so when you look through the black hole, this was like the most prominent thing that you saw, and you didn't see the black hole. So I had to move it because I didn't want people to think, well, that's not just a black hole. There's actually a star back there. I wanted there's to be surprise. And so I really had to, it's like quantum creating, because you're going small, you're going big, you're going from every dimension. To give an example, was I created an eclipse. And so you think an eclipse is pretty easy to make, except for that you have to do it from the vantage point of somebody walking along a path. And then as they walk, it becomes an eclipse. So it took me a long time to go up to the planet, move it, go back down to the path, make sure that it was moved in the right direction. And it took me, maybe an hour, but, then I came in, after doing a day's work of an MVR. I'm like, well, I made an eclipse tonight. So, this wasn't, I mean, it was
Worth it.
challenging, but it was like, hey, I made an eclipse. That's pretty damn cool. So,
yeah. I've never heard anyone say that.
yeah, so I think right now there's it's a flat table of experience, and I do have an experience at the very top, so you can see the whole thing from the top and from the very bottom. So it's been interesting because it's like a latitudinal design as well as a longitudinal design, and so and when we do get the portals in there, you can pop around with your friends. It's actually very cool.
Because
yeah, go on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, I mean, with a space that big, you can imagine it would be a little frustrating if you had to teleport or walk all the way across it if you wanted to get to just one specific area. So, in the final release, we plan to add some portals in there to make it easier to get around with your friends, or say, hey, come meet me at this area, and you just go to the portal that you want to be at, and you're there. So,
Yeah, to that point, I made a nice cup of cocoa before I jumped in last night. And he totally made me forget I had cocoa, which is quite astounding. Because I walked all the way around once, and I'm like, all right, let's go backwards. I walked all the way back around again, and I was just hypnotized, because different things move and the lights. And I was just like, I could have stayed in there all night. I was maybe I should set a timer in case I forget, how long I've actually been in here, because I think I was in there like an hour and a half.
that's great.
That is awesome. And because it's experiential, I'm sure that those places are kind of in your mind still, of places that you were. I have a friend who was kind of dealing with some anxiety, and then she went into the Rainbow Pyramid. We have a small version of that over there. And then 2 weeks later, she was kind of in a scary situation. She's like, I'm just shutting my eyes and thinking about being in the Rainbow Pyramid, and all of a sudden she's calm again. So I did want places where say you're at work and you want to find a place just to chill. You can go into this radiant area or this cave, and just kind of chill out in a meditative, beautiful space. And so that's part of the point is that there are a lot of different rooms, but there's also specific rooms that you can, or experiences that you can really resonate with and go back again and again.
Yeah, in that demo, I was in that, I think when you start, you go to the right, and I was in the crystal cave. I don't know if you have a picture of it.
This one here?
Yeah, with it's red, blue, and it changes, but I just kind of sat in there for 20 minutes. Just sat there, just listened to the music.
It's awesome.
Staring at I think the same crystal cave, maybe a different one, but they had little black spires that looked like crystals, but they were kind of morphing. And I was just sitting there staring at that thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
weird.
Well,
Stop looking at it.
It's really wonderful within Tilt Brush is that the brushes all have these interactivities, and so you're painting not just with color, but you're also painting with motion, and that particular brush, I played around with it a while, but I wanted them to look like sculptures, but they're also kind of not of this world sculptures, and the way that they undulate actually keeps them alive in a way that a real sculpture is always static here, unless it's a mobile that's air driven. And so it's really cool that within VR that you have the ability to bring these things to life, and that they aren't necessarily static.
It's almost like when you explain it like that, it's almost like something you might see on a planet, like a Mass Effect game or something like that. It's something, like not really sure what a organism or intent or whatever it is. It's just doing its own thing and being cool. But I was sitting there watching the corners kind of, someone would be out and then they would switch spots. And I was like, wow, it's just interesting. I don't know that I would have thought to put anything like that in there, but it's
Well, initially, it was just the colors. I used a paintbrush called Comet, and it was like the yellows and the oranges and all these like kind of diamond shapes that were, and I thought, it would be really interesting to just try to have some, moving sculptures. And so one night I threw them in. I'm like, you know what? That really helps it. It doesn't distract from all the kind of beautiful elements. It gives a little sense of life to it within that space.
yeah, everything there seemed like it belonged, even though some of it was just strange and out there and wonderful. But like, it was an experience. Like, I hope a lot of people get to go look at that because, like you said, it's a place. It's not just looking at a painting. You can remember it a little easier. Except for like, when I saw the rainbow tunnel off, I'm like, I gotta go walk in whatever that is because even the viewers can't see it, but like the way it sparkles when you move, it's almost like a far off waterfall with like light glinting on it while all that light's going on. But then when I got into the middle of it, I kind of forgot because along the way I forgot what I was waiting to see, and I was like, oh crap, I'm in it. There was so much other stuff before I got there. It was just wild.
Gonna say the same thing, like even like on the floor, like different things are happening. I'm like, oh, and you kind of like focus on that for a bit, and then you're like, oh, all of a sudden I'm in this big cave and holy crap, this is awesome. And then you're like, I want to go look at that, like Wookie said. By the time you get there, you almost forget about it. But because you like there's an area with like bubbles, and there's an area with like
trying to pop them,
just like lights and things, like little lights coming at you and moving around. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though it's less gamified, with all the stuff to look at, it's eye candy and kind of captivates your attention. We do expect people to still play it for long periods of time and want to come back to, see their favorite areas.
Yeah, and just like anyone watching this, you can see me do this. I back the camera. Oh, pardon me. You can just walk into this thing, and when I look out, like everything has a shade and a tint, and like, at the end of that one cave, you had a little portal there. Wookie, I don't know if you got to see this because in the full thing you shared, it wasn't the same as the demo. Like the demo, like you stuck your head in that thing, and it really chromified everything and changed color, and like the whole universe was like different. I was like, that really blew me away.
That was Matt's magic.
Yeah, that was something I ended up putting in at the very end. We had talked about, what are some different ways that you're able to experience this, and we talked about maybe some glasses you could put on, but doing it with an orb that you stick your head in is just easier for people, especially if they're new to VR. They don't really need to worry about a grab button and picking something up. They just walk to the area, and the intuitive reaction for people is just to stick their head in. And everyone does, so that ended up working really well.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Was that in?
It was right at the end of the color caves. If you went to the right, there's like it looked like white scribbly nexus or something.
It was in the
Wasn't
demo.
working.
It's in the
There's
demo.
some of that, but
It's
I
in the
noticed
demo, not in the test version we sent you. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
That's why
the demo is free on Steam, so check it out. Because yeah, that's right where the fence was, and I just stuck my head in there, and I like kept just like sticking it in and pulling it out.
Yeah, and the effect varies based on how close to the center your head is, so you really get this sense of play just by moving your body around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be a bad person to design something along a path too, because like I was looking up the kind of the first tunnel. I don't know if there's a T junction, whatever which way I went. Can't even remember now. And I was just looking up at all the stuff, and then I walked out, and I didn't realize it was going to be full on space because again I didn't play the demo yet, and I just was like, and I didn't realize I could go through and I read the email and that it was like we took the boundaries off so you can go around some places. I just thought that was like doors, but I just kind of like looked down, like had that oh shit, Like it was like a stomach drop moment, like whoa, and like
Yeah.
I could float, you know. Didn't know I was doing that, so I had no idea where I was. I'm gonna look at
Well,
that.
some people really want to just be in space and get that
Mhm.
sense where you can look down and you can look up and you're not on anything, but it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So we have to
embraced
kind
it.
of
I just,
judiciously have
yeah.
colliders because, this experience is supposed to not have like senses of fear or anything. It's all supposed to be like making you feel, a sense of wonder and awe. So we'll have to be judicious about what people can actually do.
Yeah, it's always curious from a design perspective how you walk that line because whether it's like, I always think of it like when you're bowling, you're like, put the bumpers up. Like, I don't know if you can choose that before you even hop in there, like just put bumpers up on the sidewalks or something.
Yeah. Yeah, accessibility is a big one here. We've even had to have Philip change a few things visually, just, with some people are sensitive to flashing patterns and lights
Yep.
and stuff like that. So we've had to be a little careful about that as well. So
Well, I created a glyph. There's this ability within Tilt Brush to be able to make a globe, just by the way that you move your brushes or your hands, and I made this hypercolor glyph that's yellow, red, orange, yellow, white, and it's just like, which to me is like amazingly cool. And so I had like a 30-foot long walkway of that, and so to me as an artist, that was like really, really cool. And then Matt's like, somebody might have an epileptic fit and, have a heart attack or something. So,
yeah.
so then I, it's like, well, what am I going to do? So then, I did, in one of those screen grabs you did, I made them into smaller pieces that you can look at from a far distance.
Yeah.
And then I made those radiant colors that are the embers. So like it was like, okay, what am I going to do? And then I was like, you know what I did is actually better. So it's more peaceful, it's more joyful, it's more colorful.
Yeah,
and so it was
the
a good
thing he
good-
replaced it with is actually that picture in the lower right. So it's a little more approachable than what was there earlier. So
I'm glad you think about that because we've had I'm bad with names, so I'm sorry if you see this. Yeah, Lyriel. He's epileptic and he's very trying to like bring awareness to gaming and stuff. So I love it when you guys think of that stuff on without ahead of time without having to go back and change things. And
yeah, I think I'm a little lucky in that regard because, having worked at REM 5, that's actually a location-based VR business. So outside the office here where I do my development, there's, kids and families playing VR games, and I get to kind of tap into what works and doesn't work for a wide audience.
nice.
And kind of bring that benefit into Neo Art space. So.
and I do hope that people of all ages, I've had 80-year-olds in here, I've had 3-year-olds in it, and so I want it to not be an age-specific kind of experience, and so making sure that anybody of any age can actually like wayfind and also just not be frightened or have scary moments is a good thing. So
I like not that I had any frightening moments because everyone was like, I didn't realize I was stepping out into space, which was terrific. But then there was that one part where you're, I can't even explain which room, but the little swirling lights, the little trails.
I know what you're talking about. It's kind of
animals,
pink.
Yeah, little pink things swirl or just swimming on through. So I was following a bunch of those, and then it came up to a part, I think a different color of those started coming like at me while I was trying to follow those. And it was like, my brain started telling me stories, which makes me like emotional when I see this stuff because my brain will start like thinking of other things and like almost like you're watching a Star Trek episode without any context or anything. You start to fill in like, why would this be doing this and all this stuff, otherworldly looking neat things. And it like raised my anxiety levels and I was probably gasping like, just walking through this stuff. And I was like, well, that was a ride. Like I had my own little roller coaster. I don't know if everybody else would have the same roller coaster because it's so calming and chill with the music for the most part. And then my brain's sitting over here and it's kind of like what's that Fantasia movie with like, Mickey Mouse like throwing lava up in the air and all that stuff. My brain was like, "Ooh, this is crazy." And I was looking up at all the planets. I'm like, I can see planets through the holes in the side of this planet. I was having my own. Might be the special guy. You let him go off on his tour, and then you.
No, that's super. That is interesting, though. I mean, it's interesting to see how anyone approaches this experience. Yeah,
it's nuts.
I've had about 200 people go through it at various incarnations, and like some people, like I've had like somebody who's a psychiatrist, and she just looked at the path and just kept clicking forward, and I'm like, look up, look to the sides, but it was like just making sure that she was able to like stay on the right path was like the most important thing. But then there are other people who do really want to just walk into space and like and get that sense of being way out there. But everybody brings their own stuff to it, and so you have to kind of like make sure that no matter what they bring, they all can have a good experience.
Do you like watch people like a hawk? Are you able to like kind of see in there? Because I would be so interested. You said there was a therapist lady looking down and following the path, and that's just so interesting that you'd have like somebody that works with people's brains.
Yeah,
be like the most linear sort of experience. Like I would have to be sitting there not there to track data, but I'd be like, in the earpiece, like, what are you seeing? What are you feeling right now? Like, tell me what's going on in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's just everybody brings their own level of expertise and understanding to it. So, like I had my bonus dad, he's like 77, go in and he just sat and looked at space, and that was enough for him. And he was like so overblown by just how amazing it was. He just was like, "This is immense." I'm like, yes, it is. But he didn't really want to motor around. He just wanted to like just enjoy the view from one vantage point. But then there are people like more like maybe Matt who are like more native to this, and they'll like fly around and just like running from house to house on Halloween. Just checking it all out and making sure that they see everything quickly. And so you do design for everybody.
Good thing about
awesome
VR.
That you can do that.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think we've talked about to other developers we talked to. You have to think about people seeing it from a bunch of different aspects. Where like 2D or even 3D games, they don't really get to see that, but in VR, you can stick your head around there.
Yeah,
that's an interesting creative. I don't know, not a limitation, but like a
consideration. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of it has been just making sure that wayfinding is an easy thing, no matter which direction you're coming from, and that you can kind of get a mental map of where you're going.
Right.
So, like initially, I didn't have pathways, and so then people would be floating in space, and that was a little bit, So
I remember
it's evolved a lot.
That last time.
Yeah.
That sounded hilarious. You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, just to that point, like if this is someone's first experience, like Wookiee, like walking off the trail. And you haven't really experienced that in VR, like that does, like your stomach drops. Because I remember one of the first things I did when I got VR home was do like the spacewalk, and holy crap, that was intense. And you were just out floating around in space, like realistically, that was enough. So and you have like little planets and lights like down underneath everything that you can look at. So I can see you getting off the trail really easily.
Yeah. It's like the VR can make you do that, like, not really fight or flight response, but that little ping of like, oh crap, back up, Like,
Yep.
Some games you can walk off a cliff and you might, your stomach might drop a little bit, but this one's like your whole body's like, oh, lean backwards. Like you might have to fall if you're doing something funny. There's so many ways that, there's so many ways that my brain wants to experience this. It's like, part of me wants to have like, a path that I'm pulled through, just like a little roller coaster of it, a real one, just kind of going through, so I can eat popcorn looking at all this crap. No, I wouldn't want it to tell me how it pulled me. Like
I think the Museum of Other Realities did something like that, where they call it a turtle, and you stand on it, and it's like this ring of light on the floor, and you can get a group of people in there, and it just kind of you float around the museum if you're on top of it. So it is kind of a cool thing.
I had that same thought. I'm like, it'd be neat just to be on a little conveyor belt being dragged but then I want to go this way. And they-
Yeah.
Yeah. Having the authority to get off when you want it would be cool.
And the thing, like with your app, that blows my mind, and you said this before, but I'm a gamer. I have VRs for gaming and stuff, but apps like this, like art, are what blow me away more than anything else, because it's just so surreal and like immersive, and it's just like Wookie said, lets your mind kind of like make the story and just experience it. That's just shocking to me.
Well, thanks for saying that. I really wanted to have a differentiated experience that's more like Meow Wolf or Team Lab, where it's a complete art experience. Some of the comments I get are like, is there a way that I can start shooting UFOs? And I'm like, no, it's not a shooting experience. And like if you go to the Museum of Modern Art, you don't ask to start shooting things, but people within VR games like tend to have like this want to have gamification. I think that we'll have some experiences where like you can touch something and it becomes something else, and you can interact with different things, but it's all within the paradigm of art experience. And it's been interesting because this is the first time I've ever had anything on Steam. So I've been working with Chris Zukowski, who does the professional gaming and how do you market on Steam. Part of it is like, how do you make sure that you're the closest to other games like yours? And I'm like, well, this is not a game, it's an art experience, and it's not like anything else. And so I've been kind of puzzling about that, and what you were saying before, PJ, about it's different, it's kind of surreal, and it's beautiful, and it's different than like games. It's something that I really appreciate, because like I don't call it virtual reality, it's like heightened reality, and with all the colors and the moving lights and so on, it's not something you could ever experience on Earth. It's only something you can do through virtual reality.
Yeah.
And it's an experience, and there's this whole idea of like the experience economy, which like Rainbow Forest Cafe and so on was about. And this is kind of like transformational economy, where it's like you go in, you actually have a transformative experience. So in other words, like during the day, you might have like a 3D experience of like getting stuck in a traffic jam. You have to go to this place or that place. But here, you're like able to like experience a sense of joy and wonder, and so it really elevates your frequency, your mood. And so that's part of the intent of this is for people to not getting into the fight or flight, but actually come into like a sense of wonder and awe. So. I appreciate that you kind of had that sense when you went in.
Yeah.
And to Philip's point, like one of the statements that or philosophical notions that really has spoken to me is the fact that our experiences are always real. I mean, we could be in a virtual reality world together, or we could be talking to each other face to face, but the experience we're having is real. So an experience in virtual reality carries the same gravity as an experience in real life.
Yeah, it totally does.
And I've been very interested in like the therapeutics of VR, and I recently saw somebody talk about VR in the ICU and intensive care unit. And my bonus dad was in the hospital recently, and it was a traumatic experience for me because there's doctors whipping in and out, and there's lights flashing and horns beeping, and so what they found in a healthcare environment is like, say you put on your headset and you are, in Tahiti or in Neo Art Space, your anxiety goes down, your need for painkillers goes down, and you actually, feel less stress. And I think that's really an interesting thing. I know that Matt's mom was just recently in the hospital too, and hospitals are, like, bless them, but I mean, as a patient, I mean, even as somebody sitting there, it's kind of a scarier place. And so I think that VR can provide a sense of therapeutics to people in a way that
and to your point, I actually got a headset on my mom while she was in the hospital, and something I was working on, and she had a great time. So yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in a hospital, and I would have loved to have a VR headset back then, just sitting there waiting around for things. And
yeah.
Going back to the not being a game thing, though, what I've been more and more appreciative over the past handful of years is turning the UI off in actual games so you can like look at the screen more. Because I think as soon as you put the barrier up of like character setup and the objective and all this stuff, you put anything like that, people just treat the background as just that. It's a background, and you could have spent a million hours making the Minas Tirith from Gondor from Lord of the Rings like the coolest thing,
Yeah.
and they're just sail right past it, and you're like, what? But
Yeah,
and they just don't care. So you take that away, and like, when does the shooting start? Like, no, screw that. You just look at stuff and like, just see it, just watch it for a minute, because I think that's actually making people less intelligent on a bunch of different facets, because they're just, let me follow a checkpoint. It's like, well, why don't you track something to a checkpoint instead of just have a dot on the screen? So this is just fantastic. I like to just look at stuff and go and see where that takes me, and I think I'm going to be spending a lot more time in your art installation than I thought.
Really takes you on kind of your own thought journey, essentially.
Yeah. So I'm curious with I think you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but is your target release window like February-ish or so, or is that changed?
February, March.
Sure.
I am scheduled to have an art show in New York City in February. If everything works out well, and actually have and go into there, and so that's kind of the next big thing for me.
Awesome.
And trying to like get Yayoi Kasumi, who is like one of my favorite artists, and she's a Japanese woman who created the Infinity Room, and she had that in New York City, and people waited for like 3 blocks to be able to get into it. And so like what I have created is like something that's like far more large than what the Infinity Room is, and so I'm hoping that I'll get some good press and be able to get a lot of people through there that are very interested in the arts at New York City, and that will be kind of a leaping off point for launching it.
Nice. Just curious if you have, I mean, I'm sure you want to see how it goes, but from a couple of things you said today or this evening, do you have like a base, like, is it complete, or do you kind of want to add stuff down the road type of thing, or what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, this is the base experience, and so there will be interactivity, and there will be music, and there will be spatial sound design, and so there will be so what this is like the starting point, like so. Yeah, there will be updates to it, like the chroma depth, the globe that Matt put in. We have other tricks up our sleeve that we'd like to be able to provide, so that there will be other things to do or other things to touch and transform, and so that it can be a touch and immersive art experience, as well as just So that's we're hoping, or we're not hoping, we're planning on it.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
It's been interesting thinking about music because I've worked with a couple of different musicians, and people, I don't know if you remember 2001 Space Odyssey. A lot of people think about it like that, which is kind of like a droning kind of sound. And so like finding the right music has really been something that we've been working on, to make sure that it's not like earth music. Like I don't want drums, and I don't want like birds calling and so on, because I want this to feel like you're in a whole different galaxy. But also I want it to be kind of light and joyful, and so and a lot of people have like let's and so I don't want to give people headaches when they go in. I mean, not and I'm sorry if I'm hurting any artists or musicians' feelings, but it's music is like an integral part of this, and it has to be complementary, and that's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like with the experience you shared, like, I don't know if it was the same song or a really long song, but it was different from the demo, right? Like there was like some spatial sound in the demo.
Yeah, there's some
that?
spatial sound in the demo.
Because I think in I want to call them the candy caves, that one up there, but it seemed like in the demo it was like some spatial sound, and it was kind of like an earthy type of sound, like it was just kind of like followed you a bit. I'm just curious if that was planned or
Well,
like
we have the track looping, and there are certain areas where additional sounds play. Like there's an area if you kind of go off to the left when you enter the demo, it's you see like some waviness below you, and there's some sound design with like that involves some water there. And as
yeah,
you
that's what
approach
I
the
was remembering.
yeah, that might be what you're referring to. But yeah, that's an extra layer of sound that I kind of just fade in as you move toward that area. So
That's awesome. Because that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, I don't think that's in the full experience that you shared.
no, not
I
yet.
went in there. I'm like, am I misremembering, or like, it's like an actual memory, like we were talking about. Like that's
Yeah.
how crazy it is.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
it's like,
we really
seems different.
spent time polishing up the demo and getting that in there, kind of as our vertical slice of all these features and stuff. And we'll definitely be bringing that back into the main experience as well.
I really advocated for you to be able to go into the experience as is, even though it's definitely beta. So Zach did some heroic work to be able to get it out for you. So you've seen what nobody else has seen, but yes,
Awesome.
it's still just kind of the beta version of what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, and that's I get that. I just wanted to make sure. I'm like,
Yep.
so it was
No,
so
you're not
weird in my
crazy.
head. I'm
You,
like,
you heard what you heard. Yeah.
okay,
Well, you might be crazy,
was-
but
It's just
a little bit.
This isn't a good indicator.
I think I told you, Wookie, I'm like, yeah, there's some really good spatial sound in there. And I went in there, I'm like, was I thinking of the wrong app or game? Or like, what was? I was pretty sure that's what that was, but
yeah, absolutely.
My brain was focused on what my eyes were telling me too.
Yeah.
So
well,
the music in there was a good
Mm.
vehicle for the rest of it, and it was really calming and gorgeous. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't have noticed spatial sound. I don't think I would have just been like tripping through there. I don't want to say tripping and put the wrong spin on it or anything like that, but
Some people would do that.
might enhance it even further. I don't know. Might scare the crap out of somebody. When I was going through, I was like, how can more games like bring in this sort of like feeling? Because I don't get anywhere. Again, I get like I can't listen to a lot of music because it'll jerk my emotions around like nobody's business. I don't know why. But like, why can't games put more stuff? I mean, this is its own thing, but why can't a regular game be this cool? I don't understand. Like, and no offense to every game out there I've ever played that's not this experience, but it's like, why can't games make you feel and think like that? And I guess it's just the basic thing is the game's trying to make you push buttons and kill things. So.
I think that I just come at it from such a different perspective because I come at it as an artist first, and I'm not much of a gamer, honestly, and so it was more like, what can I do to just provide like a really amazing art experience, and I like with a game, a lot of times it's a puzzle game. So what are you trying to figure out? And so then you get kind of dictated as to what you're going to do by that, and then there's like different levels, and so you end up designing to the paradigm that you're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Makes
sure if
sense.
this is like it's a really interesting challenge because like when I talk to some people, it's like who we're here at the Spatial Ape, which is a really great place. It's like, do you just go and have the images wash over you? Is that it? And I'm like, well, no, it's not just it. You have to go into experience it. So, it's like gaming as an industry, kind of like, what is the hook and how are you going to, make it be repeatable and actionable? And so, this is a whole different paradigm. And so I'm really, it's interesting to try to get it out in the market. And how do I let people know that this is extraordinary? And that it's just not just an art experience, but it's an art experience foremost. What I'm doing.
That's a huge communication challenge there because it's like, I think you're right. Based on how people are designing stuff, like you could have, some big glowy mushroom cavern, but in a game, somebody's going to want to shoot stuff and loot a box or do something in there, which ruins the whole thing. 'Cause like, I didn't know what was going to be around the next corner. In games, you can kind of like, it's a cave. I've seen 10 types of this cave before, as is what do, but this is like, you got no idea what's going on, what you might see, what the colors are going to do from, forwards and backwards. And that game just can't do that. It would alienate their player base if you don't give them something to loot. Like we played that old game Destiny, the first Destiny game, a friend of ours, and he was like, "There's nothing in this room. There should be something in every hallway, every doorway you open should have something for me to loot." He's really mad about it. I'm like, this maybe he would not like this. I don't know.
Yeah, and we talked about it as a team too. Like, do you have rewards that you can like get more of this and that, and you kind of make it into a treasure hunt? And we just said no, because that's not really the point. It's not acquisition.
Yeah, we don't want them
experience.
to zoom past all the art to go find something. We want them to see everything.
Part of those barriers I was talking about, just any of that stuff is a barrier to the art.
You were talking about like moving and movement speeds and stuff, and I'll admit at first, like, it was like, I want to walk faster than this, but then then you start looking at stuff like, no, it's perfect, because like that planet where you use like I can't remember what brush you said, but it was kind of like splattered a little bit.
Yeah, the splatter brush.
It's like you're walking towards it. I mean, again, there's so much to see, but I'm like, I'm gonna go check out that planet. And then, you're walking towards it and you get closer and you're like, I think I can go in there. Like, and then you start seeing the holes and lights and stuff. So I really liked the pacing after I got over whatever it was. Like, I just got to go through here. Like,
yeah, and, as we get it in Unity, Matt's really and Zach are the experts on locomotion, but there's joystick kind of propulsion and like the clicker.
Teleport also.
Yeah, but yeah, when you go inside that planet, there's a Merkaba. It's basically a pyramid on a pyramid, and that you can walk inside of it. And Merkaba is the symbol for in Kabbalah, that's mind, body, and spirit. So like there's a connection between all those three elements. And when you go into the very middle, Wookie, you'll like this. There's no bottom. I mean, you can see all the way down to a white star, and then when you look up, you can see all the way to the white star, because I have holes in both the bottom and the top of the planet, so that you get into a whole sense of alignment. And when we get this into development, those will be kind of moving around, so you get kind of the sense of like transformation. But it's supposed to be like, I'm aligning my mind, body, and spirit, and finding a sense of like oneness with the universe.
Wow,
awesome! But you got stuff going on like that, just going over my head. Like,
heard of guided meditation, not guided transcendence.
Well, like I'm very interested in sacred geometry. Like the pyramid is like one of the biggest examples of that, and I've made that in numerous places, and it's actually a receptor and a transformer. So it's kind of like you get like information from the universe, but you also push out to the universe. So it's really a good place to meditate. And so, like there's different, like the Merkaba too is like a different kind of sacred geometry. And so, as the artist, that's what I'm like about, is like creating these sacred geometry experiences. And the casual user doesn't need to know what it is, but it's like just something like I hope that they feel like a sense of elevation. Like when you go into that, you can go stand inside of a yellow orchid, and there's magenta lights that are coming out and below you. So it's just supposed to be, even though there's all this information about the sacred geometry, it's just supposed to be a wonderful experience.
it does, because I went into the middle of the planet and I walked into, I don't know the word used, but but it did, like, it felt like something. Like I was like, this is pretty peaceful right here, like inside that triangle. So
yeah,
something to it.
Light or something like that. Viewers, listeners, it's unique. You just gotta go check out the demo.
Yes, please do.
And that's, like you kind of mentioned earlier, like there's no video or picture that can really demonstrate VR. And I think that that kind of works against you more than any other like VR
Yeah.
game, because I mean you can see like the bright colors and the shapes and stuff, but even on the flat screen, like with it'll look awesome, but there's nothing like stepping into that and being in like that cave of lights and then things are just washing over you, and it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, for
It worked.
video games, it's like you see the screenshot of the video and it, a VR game, people playing it, and it doesn't do it justice. This one's like seeing a picture of a puddle or being in an infinity pool, like one of those
Yeah.
ones that don't end and touch the ocean. Like that's the difference here with this one, because the impact is so, I want to say personal, but the connection there is so much more of a moment than a video game. That as cool as these photos are and the little videos we got playing, it's like, well, I remember that when the lights were all flying all over the place and I was standing in the middle of it. So as cool as that little picture with all the yellow sparkles is, it's not really like being in the shower of light.
It's been fascinating. I've had my screenshots. All these have been in art magazines, and so in the art magazines, 95% of the art is paintings or photographs. And so when people see it, they see it as a two-dimensional thing, which is fairly spectacular. But you're right. It's like I'm like, it's all about VR. So this is just the beginning, So and the video looks cool, but it's just so much more amazing when you are in the middle of it and you actually see a star, about 200 feet away from you, and it's pulsating with colors. There's just nothing that a static image can do to replicate it.
Yeah, if anybody like listening, and my girlfriend loves to explain like the 4D cube stuff and how 3D things are shadows of 4D things, just the way 2D things are shadows of 3D things. So these slices of this is just like Carl Sagan said it best way back, like when he had a picture of an apple and he's like, imagine an apple passing through a piece of paper, and each slice, micron thin slice of that apple would show up in the 2D universe like a shadow. That would be all the 2D people could see. That's all you get with this, like that pretty rainbow tunnel. It's a pretty rainbow tunnel, but no, you got to walk through that. And when you see it moving, like I said earlier, when it's got like twinkles, like light twinkles of the colors on there, it looks like there's, atmosphere around it that's interacting with light coming from elsewhere. And it's just that picture. The picture is great, but when you go in there, it's like that picture sucks. Not that it doesn't suck, but like when you go in there, like, that picture does not need a spot in my brain because I want to remember this one even better.
Yeah, the dimensionality aspect that you mentioned is a good analogy for that, because you don't really get the sense of scale unless you're inside of it. So.
Yeah,
you don't know how far away
there's
that
a lot
thing
of
is.
A lot of benefits of virtual reality, and I think that we are in or heightened reality. That we're in the beginning of it. So, for instance, a couple curators contacted me about having an artwork in a gallery in Budapest, Hungary. And so I was like, well, okay, I'm going to send them one of my hanging diamonds that, is kinetic sculpture. And so I go to FedEx and it's like $800 to ship it back and forth. I'm like, well, it's worth, I'm not going to make any money. And so then I said, well, I have this demo on a PC. And so people can go, experience the VR on a screen on the PC, and that's something that anybody around the world, but it's certainly in this Budapest gallery, they'll be going to open night and be able to experience Neo Art Space as the demo there, and it was just an email that I had to send, with a link, so and with Neo Art Space again, like hopefully next time, if there is a next time, like Wookie in North Carolina, me in Minnesota, and PJ here in La Crosse, and Matt, we could all just go for a walk together, and it breaks down all space and time borders, and you can just all go in and enjoy it wherever you are. And so it's as it gets more commercially viable, I think that it's just so cool. And then also as an artist, making things in reality, you have to worry about all these different things like structural engineering, time, materials, gravity, and with VR, you can just create star systems that you don't have to make sure that they're hanging and they're not going to fall on somebody's head.
Yeah.
So
Or you have space to put them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be neat when the full release with the multiplayer, like you can all go in there for a walk and stuff. That'd be epic.
Yeah.
And you can shoot each other down the hallways, right?
Not quite.
Yeah, you have to bring your own squirt gun.
Yeah. You can propel yourself through the hallways. How about that?
Let's tag. I get you.
Yeah.
But the
So did you
VR
have-
Trend magazine guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if have you been in the magazine? I can't remember.
I haven't been in the magazine, but they do have a Kickstarter, and so I'm on their Kickstarter team.
I remember you were in one of their pictures though, holding up the magazine and stuff.
Yeah,
But they're starting to use like AR and I got the last issue came with it where it has the AR component. And I think that would be helpful to showcase like part of exhibits like yours and stuff, because you can at least kind of like see it pop up and like actually do some stuff and move around. And
That's a good point.
when that gets more mainstream, I think that'll finally help like promote VR and stuff with that. But I'm just thinking for yours especially, like it would really help it pop off the page and they could get at least a little more sense of what they're missing
Yeah,
out
maybe
if
just like pull something like what we have here or back here and just have it on the page. Yeah, that'd be cool.
that's a great idea. I did try it out, and it was really fun to be able to see the page become dimensional, and
Yeah.
that's a great technique. So did you have a favorite place when you were in there, PJ or and Wookie?
Just
can think
before, it was just before I realized what I was looking at was the big, like, mauve planet color in the
Yeah.
in the center was a planet you could go in. It was just before that because I hadn't quite realized, like, I'm going in that thing. That was my favorite moment. It wasn't any one thing. It was like that was
Yeah,
the best part because I'm like, oh snap, like I'm gonna
the realization.
yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was my favorite part of the whole thing.
And that's like I said, you're just walking through there and like you're not really paying attention. All of a sudden, like I think there's more over there, and then you just kind of see it slowly like get bigger, and then you get to it, and it's like huge, and it's just the pace of it is really neat.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah, I didn't even know that planet was there, and then I'm like, what is that? And it looked like just this little cube over there, and I'm like oh, that's a whole nother thing. So, but specifically to answer your question, I have a three-way tie between this yellow light cave here, the row of lights, and then the candy cave, I like to call it. Those three are just like, I think mostly the cave is what draws me. I just like caves, I guess, but I've sat
Cool.
in there the most, listening to the sounds and just looking at the colors shift, and like each little shard is like I would call it a prism. I don't know what the actual terms are, but even if you don't move, like things are happening. But once you start moving, like things really start changing, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of like I haven't used tilt brush, and I've only seen a couple things that use it. So, like, how did you make that cave and get it to Matt to put it in Unity? Like, that seems so crazy to me. Like, did you paint that in tilt brush and it was just one big asset and you just drop it in Unity, or you have to reconstruct some of it, or?
Well, I'll
Yeah,
let Matt answer that. But essentially, like this room, this cave was the first one, and then I created another cave. I'm like, well, what am I going to put into it? And so then I was like, I'm going to use this brush, and then I went to like the next. I created another cave, and each time it's like, how do I completely add a new sense ability, and then so. Because every space is different, and I use all the different brushes within Tilt Brush that are not like, it doesn't look like paper mache or anything, so it's like supposed to look like it's otherworldly. But yeah, it was like a big sense of adventure with me because I did not know I was going to make that, and all of a sudden I was like, look at I can pull this prism and then I can make it green, and then it shines, and oh my God, this is like a crystalline cave, and then so it was just kind of a joyous adventure of creation, and not really a diabolical plan like I'm going to do this, and then there's a whole creative brief that says I have to do that, and so no, it was kind of creating as I went. But then yes, then there's a giant tilt brush file, and then that's when Matt comes in.
Yeah, pretty much. I got the tilt brush file from Philip and made sure that I could open it in my copy of tilt brush as well. And then on the dev side, there is a free to use tilt brush toolkit that you can import into Unity. And then, I actually have to export a big file from tilt brush, and then pull that into Unity. And that is pretty heavy. Like my other computer didn't have enough memory to do it, so I had to get out the big guns in order to work with that file. The entire model has about 40 million triangles, so as you can imagine, that's quite an optimization challenge. And I'm really glad Philip just went crazy. In no way is that an issue, but we do need to be careful about what we have turned on at a certain time, and be careful about how much we're rendering based on the player's vantage point. But yeah, essentially the workflow is just exporting that giant tilt brush asset and getting it into Unity. And once we get further into optimization, we're going to be exporting, little pieces of it and bringing it into Unity. And those pieces we can turn on and off, or, render with more or less detail depending on how near or far away the player is.
Yeah.
But does that kind of answer your question a little bit? Okay.
Yeah.
It was with great sense of relief that this could actually go into Unity. When they told me that it was successful, I was like, oh my God, thank you. Because, it is giant, and I've never built, anything this big in tilt brush, and so I was really relieved.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, like for the big like crystal cave or something like that, if you painted just the cave and it was too big, like you have to, break it in half, and then do you have to go sit with him to say, no, it goes like that, put it back together like this, and then my mind was sitting there like, that could be a horrendous undertaking.
Luckily it's not really too much reconstruction. So, and also what's been helpful is tilt brush actually went open source, and there is a project called OpenBrush that you can just download. Tilt brush was made in Unity, so as a developer, it was nice for me to be able to look through the actual tilt brush files and see how they set everything up, and kind of get our settings in line so that we can achieve the same look. Because if you open an empty Unity project, even after pulling in tilt brush toolkit and bring in the art, it lacks the flair that you see in the actual tilt brush application. So we had to do some work to actually get it looking the exact same. But yeah. So while they're in the same game engines, there are certain challenges that we've had to deal with.
Yeah, and real quick on OpenBrush, because I had Rosie Summers on the podcast. And
Oh yeah,
she is, oh my God, amazing. We've sat in some of her classes and stuff like that.
She did. I think that was the Narnia scene. She was playing Narnia. That's cool.
She's one of the ones helping, to keep tilt brush, open brush going and support that.
Yeah,
and for
awesome.
listeners and Wookie, like if you've never seen, like you can just go grab all kinds of little art and just like, it's not on this scope by any means, but like you can just like little animated things, and you can just kind of walk around in all these places, like, and it's all free unless you want to like tip the person, but it's pretty epic. But clearly nothing on this scale. So I was also thinking like, how the hell did you do this? I don't remember what size you said it was if you were in the real world, but it's pretty huge. Like,
Yeah.
10 stories and was 100 square
100,000
Thousands, yeah.
1,000 square feet.
roughly. Yeah.
That's my guesstimate, yeah.
Give or take a planet or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a PC VR game, because it is so big that you need to have the horsepower of a PC, as I understand it. So, but we, aren't really scrimping on any of the design or the music or the sound effects. We want it to be the best experience possible. So
Yep.
that's, it might be big,
I-
but it's going to be worth it.
I love that you're doing that. Like the Quest is great, but like my heart's with PCVR and just like actually making something big and beautiful and like you said, the right sounds and animations and all that. Like
I see it as like you can watch something on a movie on TV, or you can do IMAX. Like this is going to be IMAX, it's like
Yeah.
round and big and gorgeous. Oh.
But it's nothing like IMAX because
Well, not at all.
IMAX,
No,
flat.
no, just
just for the viewers.
yeah, no, it's in sense around. It's all over.
Yeah.
you.
For some reason, our brains like as small a TV screen as you have. If you're engrossed in a movie, it doesn't. The screen size stops mattering after a while. It's the same thing with IMAX. I saw like Apocalypse Now. The first time I ever saw the movie was in an IMAX theater, like a re-release in like 2001 or 2. And it was like amazing. And then at the end, like during the thing, it was just I'm just watching a movie. It didn't, didn't faze me. I don't think I'll ever get used to something like this when you can step out and be like, oh, that's open space. And like you look up, and like, oh, there's 2 planets. Are they going to collide? I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, the sense of scale, like PJ keeps going on and on for other chats we've had with people, like the scale. You can be really small and everything's really huge, or vice versa. Makes you feel nice and small in this stuff. When my brain gets going, it's like that's a really nice metaphor for Earth, which I have no idea if that's what you meant to put in there. Like, oh, it's it's changing. My brain's making stuff up. Spectacular. I can't say anything. I keep trying to say to the viewers and listeners.
Yeah. Well, you just got to go try the demo, I guess.
Just
Yep.
do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it.
I think that in the real world, we see stars and they're so far away that they're just little points of light. And, even when there are certain, things that happen from an astronomy sense, and I'll go out and I'll have my binoculars and the binoculars are shaking. And so it's like, oh my God, it's so far away. But with this kind of experience, you feel like you're in the neighborhood of the stars, and there's not like this whole, Earth is here and that's there. You're actually like in the stars as a neighborhood. And so it's
It's funny you say that. Like when I first got in there, I'm trying to think like coming at it from like, I got to think of something to say about this. Cause if I drool on myself because it's just, it's pretty lights, that would be a horrible thing to say. But my brain, when I was first walking through, it's like, not like the Pillars of Creation photo, like you're in that, but you're like you said, Neighborhood of Stars was what brought that back to me. It's like you're kind of like in a Pillar of Creation style thing because there's just stuff happening, all the movement and all the animated paths of lights and all that stuff. And it's Pillars of Creation kept coming to mind. Just, it's a generic term in a famous photo, but it's still kind of like the energy, like the chaos of it. It's pretty good. Does not need bullets.
I'm so happy that you were both able to go in and see the beta version of it. And last time I was on, I was just explaining it, and words are pretty inadequate to explain the actual experience. So,
like BJ, you might have seen something about it, or you knew about it, and you were explaining. Philip was explaining it. And I'm just sitting here like, "Word, that sounds dope." Like trying to keep up. Like it sounds crazy cool. And then,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I should have looked, but I'm trying to remember when you were on and you were talking about, because it was a while ago, and I was just like
months at least, yeah.
Patiently waiting because you kind of described it, but like I've seen photos of your other artwork and stuff, and when I visited you guys, my plan was to visit you too, but you were busy with family, and I was like, I want to get back there because I want to see like just your photos of your other work. Like I really like what you do with lighting and color and all that. So I was really bummed I didn't get to, but I've been thinking about it ever since you were on the podcast last. I'm like, that's coming up. It's coming up.
yeah, I think it was May or June, and so we were just in the beginning of figuring out how to get it into Unity and so on.
Yeah.
So we've
Was
made
it-
a lot of progress, and doing the demo was a really great thing to like kind of propel things forward.
Yes, definitely.
I'm just in
thinking
awe
this-
because
I've,
we've said it on the podcast. Like normally when it's just our stuff in here, there's a little thing on the wall there. I went into Tiltbrush and all I could do was write like our podcast name with a paintbrush. So when like you guys pull this stuff off, it's just like, I don't know how you do it. I went in there and I was like, I don't know what tool to use to do what. It's like a caveman throwing excrement at the wall. Like, I don't know
I'm
how
sure
you
it
guys-
takes practice, but Phil, that's something Philip can speak to much more than I.
Well, I think that I've spent about 2,000 hours in this, and so just like learning to type, like pretty soon you are doing it without thinking, and so and then also because I've been a potter, I've been a photographer, I've done projections, I've done lighting design, I've done video, and studied filmmaking. Like everything came together in VR that allows me to create these dimensional things. So it's kind of like the culmination of a lifetime of artistic exploration, and VR is and Tiltbrush is the perfect way for me to express all of that in a way that I couldn't ever do in reality.
What was I'm just curious, like the first time you ever went into like Tiltbrush, like what did you just do? Like, how did you just start? Because I think that's probably the hardest part.
I went in and I had a paintbrush and Tiltbrush because I was like, okay, I'm just going to figure out Tiltbrush. And so I started painting, and there's that famous picture of Picasso painting with light. And so I'm like, ooh, I can really do this. And then I'm like, that's too small. And so then I kept jumping to make it bigger. And so people were like, what the heck's that guy doing? He's like jumping over there in the corner. And then like I realized that like you can shapeshift, so you can go from the size of a squirrel to the size of a dinosaur. And so when you're at the size of a dinosaur, it's pretty easy to make like a star system because you're making everything's tiny. And then when you get back down to the size of the squirrel, all of a sudden you have a star system up there. So part of it was to learn that I could be different sizes, and then like totally just going through every single brush and trying it, and then doing that first painting, and then realizing that Tiltbrush had enough different brushes that I could like create something that was massive. But yeah, at first it was kind of challenging. I mean, like you, I mean, it's like, what am I going to make? And if you don't really know what you're going to make, it's and you're doing it for the first time, it's a little bit maybe scary. But spending time in it, you learn all the kind of ins and outs. And there's so many interesting tricks, like making a globe, for instance. You make a circle, you can like pull it apart, and all of a sudden a globe pops up, or a disc, and it's like, damn, that's like magic, and it's not something you can do in reality. And there are all these different like shapes, like capsules and squares and so on. There's things I would ask for, but it's and then you can also cut and paste. And so like I can create all these. I can create 1, 2, 3, cut and paste each one of them as a row, and then I can like highlight them all, and then I can change the color, and I can highlight the next set and change the color, and highlight the next set and change the color. So I can move pretty quickly by replicating and changing. And so it looks like every single one of these was done separately, but I'm like cut, paste, color. And so nobody ever sees me. I probably should document what I do a little bit more because it's kind of maniacal, but it is actually magical too. So
I'd watch that stream.
Yeah. Yeah, you see those videos like, going back to Rosie Summers, and they're just like whipping around painting, and then they're like, ta-da, something magical. It's like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
crazy.
well, we had
It
a
is.
contest of artists, VR artists at REM 5, and I, in 20 minutes, I created like 8 different colored globes, and then like 20 different fireworks. They were all in this giant rim, and the space was just giant. And then what I ended up finding out is that on the monitor, all like people could see was like blank space because what I created was a little bit too big. And so the other people were creating things like the size of this table. And so everybody could like see what they're creating. And so I didn't even make it to the second round, but I'm like, I created a universe. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
But
that
nobody
was
saw
tricky
it.
because the people, voting on everything, were seeing it on a 2D screen. But
Mhm.
yeah, fun event though. Really cool to see how different people approach tilt brush painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you learn through every experience, and so like I didn't realize I was actually supposed to be concentrating on the 2D screen, but I mean other people made amazing things, and then our friend Brian edited my video together, and then it's like, oh yes, you can see everything that was happening, and it really turned out to be very cool. So
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, I love that you guys are in the same area and that you work together because I've seen like almost all your guys when you do like the art shows and you have like all the local talent like and do their stuff and then you guys put it in like a virtual museum. Like I've been in all of those and it's just
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I've seen that video where you were I think it was the 20-minute challenge where you're just like frantically like doing stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I love all that stuff, you guys. It's just amazing. And then you had that one
Thank
like
you.
exhibit in Spatial Ape here where you could go up on all the floors, like because I was in that installation in your from your site, and then I saw it in here. I'm like, what the hell? Like awesome! Like I was running over there, jumping on it, and looking at all the paintings again. Cool.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, like, I'm glad that I'm at Rem 5. That's how I believe I ended up meeting Philip in the first place, was through Rem 5 events and stuff like that. But yeah, the Rem 5 does a lot of like, community focused stuff and reaching out to, virtual events so that people from across the globe can join as well. But yeah, it's kind of the duality between community focused and, world focused. But
Yeah, it
can
was
lead-
funny
can lead to
because
some-
they've also
I
done some
think
really cool things like for the Minnesota Twins,
Yep.
having
Yeah.
a virtual event, and then also an art gallery. So like they use the medium of VR to create things for experiences, and I think that that's been really, really fascinating, and it does become very inclusive, especially when with the pandemic, people could go see art in a VR sensing, and it's
yeah. And I think it was funny because I think it was Brian I was talking to, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Hey, doing this Minnesota Twins thing last summer, I think."
Yep.
And so we had him on the podcast and did all that, and then I started talking to you, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, we worked with him." I'm like, "What?" Like, yeah, we're both in the cities. I'm like, "Really?" Like, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Well, I'm like
I-
2 hours south. Like, I gotta come up." Like,
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that I get to double dip here. So
Yeah, I feel really fortunate. I mean, like as an artist, without help with Unity, I would be, dead in the water. And it's a very unique skill set to be able to understand Unity and all the capabilities. So,
all about forming a team with complementary strengths. So
yep, absolutely.
because
It's
I
nice
couldn't
to-
paint something like this either. So I mean, yeah,
Cool. I'm like that you guys do a lot of, like I said, local based stuff and like community things with like you can probably talk to better. Like you had a lot of the local, I don't want to say like children, but what was one of the exhibits was like all children with art.
Oh man, I think Brian could speak to this better than I could
Sorry, I
because
didn't
he
put you on
kind of
the
heads
spot.
up a lot of the events and I'm more of just I handle a lot of the software development stuff. But Rem 5 does like sensory friendly stuff for kids who may have autism or other things like that. Make it so that it's accessible to anyone or people who are deaf come in and then do stuff like that. But yeah, Rem 5 also does a lot of like camps and stuff for kids as well. So, K through 6 stuff. So,
Yeah.
but I can't speak to the specifics as well as my counterpart Brian could.
And we've had like teachers and things on the podcast, and I get so jealous because I'm like, if we had VR when I was a kid, like it'd be a whole different world going,
Yeah, I mean, like I watched a lot of Star Trek: The Next Generation growing up, and I always dreamed of being able to use something like a holodeck someday. And like,
Yep.
it's really empowering. Here I am. I'm able to like make stuff in VR now. It's just like a dream come true. So, didn't expect that, but the first time I put on a VR headset, I was blown away, and it captivated me. I'm sure a lot of other people have had similar experiences. So.
Yeah. Well, I want to appreciate your time. So we've gone a little over an hour. We don't mind, but sometimes guests might. But before we wrap up, is there anything we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to share or talk about, or?
I think that we hit all the points we want to talk about. We do have the
Awesome.
Steam site, and we have the demo
Yeah.
available for either the PC or for PC VR. We also have a Discord community, so you're welcome to check that out. I try to post there periodically. And if anybody wants to ask any questions or contact us, we're on Twitter and all the
Yeah,
likely
well,
suspects
we
of
will
social.
see. We will, if you reach out to us on social media, we will see it and answer. So, and as far as this as Steam goes, like we do appreciate any wish lists because that helps us in terms of the algorithm. So,
It's on
And
my
reviews.
list.
Yeah.
We'll make sure it's on mine too.
appreciate it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, well, links to Twitter, every Twitter and the demo and everything you guys have will be on the show notes and all that stuff. So,
Awesome.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Well, thank
Nice
you
and
for the
quick.
opportunity to come on and talk through it, and also thanks for letting your cocoa go cold while you went into it and experienced the VR directly, the New York space directly. I appreciate your time to go out and check it out. So
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much, and I appreciate you guys having me on for the first time. It's been real fun.
yeah, anytime. I can't, literally before we wrap up, like I was talking to someone at work about the Neo art space, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing tonight. And I explain it, and they're like, what? Yeah, I can't wait to go back in there. It's very calming, very relaxing. So
Awesome.
it'll be awesome.
That's great. Well, thank you so
Any
much.
final thoughts? Okay.
I yapped a whole lot, so
Okay.
you just gotta experience it.
Yeah.
Go do it. So
Yeah, well, this has been real
viewers, go ahead
fun.
and wish list it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Wave at the invisible camera.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, see you guys.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks again, man.
All right. Take care, everyone.
You too.
Don't freeze to death in the snow.
I'll try not to. All
I
right.
don't want to look
Bye.
outside now.
Bye-bye.
See ya.